Welcome to Blue Line Mental Health. I'm glad you're here. If you haven't already, please take a moment to click that like button and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to hit the bell notification so you don't miss any of our new content we share. Warning: this channel may contain material that is graphic and could potentially be a trigger for some. Viewer discretion is advised. Don't say I didn't warn you. Welcome to the Blue Line Mental Health Executive Command Staff Interview Series. I'm thrilled to bring you an in-depth conversation with Chief Heather WURTH of the Shorewood Police Department. Today, we will delve into the vital topic of law enforcement mental health amid the evolving demands from the community and political landscape. Chief WURTH will share her invaluable perspective on the impact of these changes on the stress and mental well-being of our officers. We'll explore how mental health support for law enforcement has transformed over the years, and most importantly, where it needs to go. This discussion is not just a message for law enforcement officers, but for the entire community, as we navigate together towards a more supportive and understanding future. Let's dive in.
Yeah, I talked about that just a little bit, but I think, like I said, we're finally normalizing talking about mental health issues. And we've seen conferences, peer support conferences. We've seen mental health wellness symposiums, certainly in the state. I know that they're occurring in other states. But yeah, like I said, I think the most important thing is that we're finally normalizing talking about it when we're recognizing the impacts of stress has not just on our careers but our lives and how it impacts our family, our children. Um, yeah, so we've come a very long way, and we still have a very long way to go. I it's that there's still a stigma attached to law enforcement and mental health, um, and but it's changing. It is definitely changing. When I worked in internal affairs, one of the greatest things that we ever did at internal affairs, um, and I bring that up because um, when we talk about misconduct, sometimes misconduct can be driven by a person's mental state, their physical state, their well-being, their overall well-being. And so one of the things that we ultimately did when I was at Internal Affairs was we looked at the whole person and we looked at the behavior. And so when we considered the allegation or the alleged act of misconduct, were there mitigating factors in what transpired? Um, so if it was an off-duty incident, um, that it involved alcohol, was it an ongoing issue? Was it a one-off? Was it something that the person had been seeking help for or seeking treatment? Was there an admission that they were struggling with addiction issues or familial issues, relationship issues, whatever the case may be? So we looked at the whole person, and then secondarily to any potential discipline that may be imposed was what other resources could we afford this individual to help them get back to a place where they were in a good state and would not face potential or future disciplinary issues because of these underlying causes. So, um, internal affairs, my time at internal affairs was really eye opening to me. And that's where I really started to develop my interest in mental health and mental health issues, causes of mental health issues. Because when we looked at individuals, we knew that they were experiencing something. And of course, there were acts of misconduct that were just bad, right? And but more often than not, we were intervening with individuals before it rose to the level of discipline. So the positive impact that internal affairs could have with the assistance of our districts and bureaus to help a person avoid discipline or termination or whatever the case may be is really eye-opening for me. So, you know, from my time at internal affairs and talking about like I said, some of the causes and some of the addiction. And of course, we had issues it seemed in Milwaukee, we had a span of incidents where our officers were taken into custody for drunk driving. And, how do we address those and how do we address them widespread in the department and set specific expectations about the discipline that may occur with certainly drunk driving incidents, but more than that, like what could we do in law enforcement to prevent it on the front end before it got to the point? And that's where, it's important to engage all of our officers to understand the consequences. What behaviors may be shown by individuals suffering from addiction or relationship issues or whatever the case may be, to how do we address that before it rises to the level of point where it gets to internal affairs or discipline or those kinds of things. So, it really needs to be a widespread conversation. And it's really incumbent, certainly as a supervisor, I don't know everything. I don't know what some of my officers are doing off duty, but other officers know. And we don't normalize having conversations about that, about officers saying to somebody, hey, I think this officer is having a problem, or we as supervisors recognizing on-duty behaviors that are outside of the norm of what we've seen from an officer and stepping in to address some of those things. I mean, that could be a failure to our officers and put them in a position where they're having to ultimately end their career, willingly or unwillingly. But yeah, it's really incumbent upon all of us. Well, ideally, I'd like all of my officers to be trained in peer support, because I think that is one of the simplest ways that we can have a positive influence on one another. To have that training and knowledge about what to look for, about what to recognize in individuals. And that's not to say that, we don't inherently know or notice differences in somebody who is struggling. But ideally, I'd like to see everybody in peer support. I'd like department psychologists to be embedded in every single police agency. I'd like to see every police agency have a therapy support dog about our community to support our efforts in taking care of our officers and our overall care. Everything from mental health support to physical well-being to spiritual well-being. So, I think some of those things that I mentioned are very tangible for us, but also for our officers to talk about it regularly, for us to have debriefs, and for us to have this as a part of our daily conversations that we do struggle, and it's not weakness to admit the need for help. Up, I hope. um, it really can only go up. But this podcast or this show is going to be a really great start. I think the exposure that we in law enforcement have to talk about our stories, to talk about the challenges we face, to talk about the struggles that we face, to provide insight to our communities about our humanity is absolutely critical. because our community can do a lot to support our wellness. I mentioned funding is one thing, and probably a very important thing, but we've seen instances where our community has been integral to our wellness. Certainly in critical incidents where we've had law enforcement line of duty deaths, and the show of public support was incredible, and that's a start. That bolsters how we feel about ourselves, about the work that we're doing in the community, and that's a component of our overall mental health and wellness and well-being, to know that we're supported by the community, not just financially, but when bad things occur, that they care.
Thank you for watching this video on our channel. If you found this content meaningful, please like, subscribe, and share to spread awareness and make a difference, one step at a time.